It's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker and a most distinguished alumna of the University of Massachusetts Boston, who has worked on environmental issues at the local and state level in Massachusetts and Connecticut for more than 25 years. For nearly 2 decades, she served in senior environmental leadership posts under the administration of 5 Massachusetts governors. I even found out tonight on my way here through my wife that she also did some work in Stoughton, where we reside right now. So she's been around. But listen, I was in Washington, D.C. this week, and we had like Dorchester Week down there. Jim Brett held the New England Council. And I have never felt like I felt when people were coming up to me congratulating me on bringing home one of their own who was OFD from Dorchester to this campus. They were high-fiving me all night because you were coming to this event, many of whom are here tonight. And so there she honed her expertise in managing hazardous waste, pollution prevention, and smart growth planning. Prior to her current federal government appointment, she served as commissioner of the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection. Last year, when President Obama was looking for a dynamic and results-oriented executive to develop and implement policies to affect climate change, the choice was obvious. No one could match the qualifications of this Dorchester native. No one could be the architect that she has been of things like Massachusetts' first climate production action plan to combat the effects of global warming, and Connecticut's climate change action plan that brings significant knowledge, leadership skills, and an unwavering commitment to environmental sustainability, to federal government policy on these issues. She is, as Senator Christopher Dodd said, universally recognized as a uniquely talented environmental advocate. Ladies and gentlemen, it is truly an honor to present one of the University of Massachusetts Boston most esteemed graduates. Please join me in welcoming to this stage and back to this campus our alumna, Gina McCarthy. Let's give her a round of applause.
I have a sneaking suspicion I might have to move the microphone down. That's why they bring me to Washington. Chancellor, thank you so much. It's amazing to see his energy and enthusiasm, and as a graduate of this university, I couldn't be more proud to have a leader like you who has such a tremendous vision, but whose feet is squarely planted on the ground. Because that is what this university is all about. It's to strive for excellence, but to understand that the way in which excellence happens is to bring people from where they are, to grab them in their own communities, and to enhance our communities on the way forward. And I think that's what has always appealed to me about this university. It has a sense of academia, but it doesn't lose its roots. And that is really where we all are. I have moved from Massachusetts, but frankly, I still live in Canton, and go Canton. Stoughton's great, but we always fight, and they primarily beat us in football. So as a result of that, I want to give you one word of advice and one factual evidence. The factual issue is Boston Bruins 5, Philadelphia Flyers 4. I'm sorry, I had to say that because we lose constantly in the Canton-Stoughton matches. I have to win at something. We'll see how the series goes, Chancellor, but it's great to be here. And I want to thank the sponsors for tonight, for bringing us all together. Thank you, Dan Ray, for all of your support for the university and for Boston State, turned into UMass Boston. I want to congratulate Professor Looney on his great achievements and his award tonight. I will tell you that I'm here for one reason only, and that is because I owe the University of Massachusetts Boston big time. Whenever anyone asks me, where did you go to school? I don't tell them Tufts. That was later. Where I went to school was UMass Boston. Not UMass, UMass Boston. And I let them know that I studied social anthropology with Barbara Ayers, who remains one of my idols. I studied primates with Naomi Bishop. Do you remember Ken, Naomi Bishop? When he had, Ken's my husband, he's here. It's very nice. He's a graduate of 77. He remembers Naomi Bishop because as soon as he had to do a presentation in class, he skipped the rest of the classes. He hated doing that kind of stuff. But people ask me, why did social anthropology prepare you for the work that you're doing in government? Well, everyone who asked me that, I wondered whether they had ever been in the Massachusetts legislature, whether they had ever been in the Connecticut legislature, and whether they had ever visited Congress recently, because it is a primitive society into itself. But frankly, what social anthropology taught me and what this university taught me was to relish diversity. Not to fight it, not to worry about it, not to be concerned if people disagreed with what you said, but to try to understand what people were thinking, were feeling, where they came from, and to use that to understand how you could move forward. And that's what this university taught me. This university taught me that you don't need to think alike, that you don't need to be alike, that you all don't have to be rich to make a difference, that you could come from a pretty lower middle class Irish family and you could work hard, and that's what it took to be in the United States of America and to succeed. This university gave me everything I needed to know about attitude, and that is what has taken me anywhere I've ever gone, so I thank UMass tremendously for that. UMass Boston. And it also gave me my husband, who was actually a graduate of 77. He likes to say he was a lot younger than I am because I'm a graduate of 76. The truth of the matter is he stayed back. No, that's not true. But right up the way, I used to every day go to the library where Ken was studying very, very hard every day so I could wake him up and tell him it was time to go home. And where I actually have had the tremendous pleasure when I was in Massachusetts of working with some great people here in the university. And I'd like to recognize David Levy first. Because David, David, thank you. David worked with me and with many of us as we worked on the development of a climate plan in Massachusetts. His opening of the Center for Sustainable Enterprise and Regional Competitiveness is just another example of how the university is expanding under the Chancellor's leadership and under the wise guidance of David. So thank you very much for all of the work that you're doing. It's terrific. And also UMass is where my daughter Julie, who is right here, Julie, stand up, say hello to everybody, or don't. She never does what she's told, so that's all right. Oh, she stood. Julie is actually a third-year nursing student here. And I will tell you, I couldn't be more proud of her. I'll tell you something that she'll yell at me for doing so, but I'll tell her at you anyways. And that is that she started at Roger Williams in Rhode Island. She started in September, and by December she told me that she wanted to be a nursing student. Well, lo and behold, Roger Williams doesn't have a nursing program. So we very happily looked around, and she ended up going to the University of Massachusetts here in Boston, and I thank my lucky stars every day for that. Now, I will tell you that when I went to the university and when Ken went, I think it cost us $180 a semester. It's a little bit more than that, but goddamn, it's still worth every penny. So I owe this school big time, and I'm very, very, very proud, and I'm happy to be back here to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in Washington, because I know there's a lot of concern for what's happening on the issues of climate change and energy. But I first want to begin by just mentioning the Gulf Coast to you, and tell you that people are facing a tremendous oil spill, as you know. While this water situation here in Massachusetts may sound pretty extreme, the problems that they are facing are going to be quite large. And I couldn't begin without mentioning that, and mentioning that I just hope that the resilience of the people in Louisiana can stand one more natural disaster. I know we are doing everything we can to try to help them, but it is incredible to think that they have to be tested in this way one more time. But I also want to mention the fact that if you haven't read the Boston Globe today, you ought to just pick it up and turn to the editorial page, because there was an editorial today that talked about the tremendous irony of having this type of oil spill in the Gulf at the same time as last week we couldn't even really move forward to put out a climate bill for debate in Congress. And it's hard to understand that. It's hard to understand the irony. But I will tell you at the end of my discussion tonight, I will mention to you that the University of Massachusetts helps me deal with that as well, because I've learned a lot. But no one could argue really that even with the disaster that is happening in Louisiana, no one could argue that we have come an awful long way environmentally. Now, we can talk about how far we have to go, but once in a while, especially at a wonderful engagement like tonight, we ought to stop and congratulate ourselves on what we actually have achieved, especially since, was it last week? When was the 22nd? Just a little over a couple of weeks ago, we celebrated the 40th Earth Day. Now, that was pretty cool. I got to yell play ball at a Red Sox game. Now, there's nothing cooler than that. I did it with gusto. What, should I do it again? Play ball! Just a little instant replay for you. But we have made tremendous progress. But we really need to think about what progress we have made and how that applies to the years coming forward. So let me just quickly talk to you about this a little bit, because it wasn't just the 40th anniversary of Earth Day. It was actually the 40th anniversary of EPA. EPA was created just after the first Earth Day, and it was actually the 40th anniversary of the Clean Air Act. So all I want to do is, for a moment, talk about the success we have had as a result of those 40 years of experience under the Clean Air Act, so we can hopefully leave here tonight with hope for the next 40 years. And I will do that by beginning to say that in the 40 years since the 1970 Clean Air Act was enacted, we now have little widgets that many of you out there, like Professor Looney, will know well, which are catalysts, scrubbers, low VOC paints and coatings, many, many technologies that in 1970 nobody ever heard of before. But were they afraid to pass the Clean Air Act? They passed the Clean Air Act as a leap of faith, knowing that people were dying as a result of air pollution, and they wanted to do something about it. What they wanted to do about it was to reduce those public health impacts, reduce those environmental impacts, and do it by triggering, by incentivizing the innovation that we all have inside of us, that education teaches us, that academic institutions like this thrive on. They didn't wait to have the answers. They took that leap of faith. And as a result, just between 1970 and 1990, the Clean Air Act prevented 205,000 premature deaths, 18 million children's respiratory illnesses, and my favorite is 10.4 million lost IQ points in children. Now, you may ask me how I know that. I know that because that's the only way that explains why Julie is smarter than I am. And it's because we took lead out of gasoline. Duh. Today's new cars, trucks, and engines are up to 95% cleaner than in past models. The most harmful ozone-depleting chemicals have been phased out of existence, leading to a decrease in dangerous skin cancers in the United States. The list goes on, but the most interesting part is, did the Clean Air Act take down the economy? As many businesses and industries actually predicted every time we put forth a new rule, and frankly, every time we continue to put forth a new rule. Well, it didn't. In fact, from 1990 through 2008, emissions of 6 common pollutants decreased 41%. At the same time, the gross domestic product grew 64%. By 2007, the environmental technology industry was generating approximately $282 billion in revenue, producing $40 billion in exports, and supporting $1.6 million. We did not take down the economy because we made it a nicer, healthier place to live. We grew the economy for simply that reason. So we have to learn from that past 40 years, and we have to understand what we need to do for the next 40 years, because we are fighting a battle now that we simply cannot lose. And that is a battle of how we address the challenges associated with climate change. How do we not make the future worse, and how do we address the future that we know is coming today and tomorrow and the next day? How do we do that? We need the political will that we had 40 years ago. We need to make the same leap of faith. We need to understand that we can put together the right mix of economic policy, regulatory incentives that can solve the issues moving forward and bring the power of innovation and the ingenuity of the human spirit to take an issue that is now a problem and turn it into an opportunity for this country. We owe our children nothing less than that. So first and foremost, we need comprehensive legislation. There is no question about that. I will tell you, every day I am in Massachusetts, I am proud to talk funny. They are wicked weird, I will tell you that right now. But I am proud to be from Massachusetts. I love listening to Senator Kerry. I love listening to Congressman Markey, because they talk funny and they talk real. They tell it like it is and they make things happen. And I am so proud that we have them in office so they can push us to face the reality that one needs to face and to move forward with legislation that is absolutely essential. But I will tell you that I didn't go to Washington to sit around and wait for congressional action. Never done that before and don't plan to in the future. EPA's Administrator Lisa Jackson didn't sit around so that she could look at the law and decide it was inconvenient to follow it. Or listen to the science and say, you know, that might get me into trouble, so I ain't going where the science tells me. What she actually said when she got there is that I'm going to listen to the law and I'm going where science is driving us. And that is why the EPA put forward, just last December, something we call the Endangerment Finding. Now, it doesn't sound that exciting, but I will tell you, 320,000 people felt the need to comment on it at the time. And since we passed it, 15 entities have decided that they want to sue us about it. So it must be pretty cool. It actually is a statement that the administrator made that said, you know, carbon dioxide and all these greenhouse gases actually do pose a danger to public health and welfare under the Clean Air Act, and lo and behold, we're required under law to regulate it. And that is indeed what we are going to do, whether Congress moves forward and whether it doesn't. And as a result of that, we moved forward swiftly. The first thing we did was meet President Obama's promise to have clean cars on the road. It is called the light-duty vehicle. It is going to bring and move forward the next generation of clean cars. It is going to increase fuel economy up to 35.5 miles per gallon by 2016. And the most interesting part about it is you're going to save money. How death-defying is that? How dare the Environmental Protection Agency put out rules that are good for us? You are actually going to save about $3,000 in fuel savings over the life of the car, even considering any increased cost to make that car. And that is what is so intriguing about the challenge of greenhouse gases. Unlike the Clean Air Act, the challenge of greenhouse gases isn't about putting a widget at the end of a pipe that costs money to make and costs money to run. It's about efficiency. It's about making money. It's about saving money. So why is it that 40 years ago we had the courage as a nation to move forward with the Clean Air Act that would challenge us so dramatically, and yet we can't take a step forward to do something that is good for us? We have to ask ourselves that. We have to begin to face those issues. And I would like to close by just mentioning one additional thing, and I can't not mention it since I'm in the academic world. Standing here in front of my good university, and I want to challenge them to work on one of the reasons why I think we're not moving forward, and that has to do with education, education, education. I cannot tell you the number of people who come up to me and say, what difference does a degree make? Not a university degree, a temperature degree. Why do I care that we're going to be 2 degrees hotter on average than we were before? It's really nice that it'll be sunnier. You know, it's great. The lack of understanding of the science is tremendous. And we owe it to our children to teach them the truth. I do not want to be arguing the science of climate the same way we are arguing still the evolutionary theory. We need to have scientists who talk clearly and succinctly in ways that people understand. We need universities like UMass Boston that serve real communities, real on-the-ground individuals that aren't going to want to run out and be the next president as much as they're going to want to go out and make a difference in their own communities. We're going to want to arm them with information that they can talk clearly about the challenges we're facing, why we're challenging it, why those challenges are arising, what opportunities they present to us as individuals, to our growth as an economy, to our growth in business, and we want to arm them with information so they can bring it back to the real people that vote every day and make a difference in a democracy. That's what this university can help us do. And I will end with a quote from my big boss, President Obama, who said that the nation that leads the clean energy economy will be the nation that leads the global economy. And as he campaigned for the presidency, he said, if not now, when? If not us, who? This university taught me that it's me and it's now. And we can arm our children to have the same attitude of energy, enthusiasm, promise, and vision that it's going to take to address the challenges that we're facing with climate and the challenges that we're facing with rebuilding our economy, and understand that there are no choices that need to be made that separate those two. We can grow the economy, and we can address climate change, and we indeed must. Thank you very much.